G'day, I'm Alex Gibson. This is my second video blog, and I just wanted to pick up on a few points that I made in my last video. I talked a little bit about polyopticon.org, which is my website. It's sort of a collaborative website for artists, filmmakers, theatre makers, poets, writers. There's sort of something for every creative and artistic sort, and if there isn't already, then I'm sure you guys can, think of a way to include yourself. It's really about trying to get people together and thinking and working in hybrid ways, to collaborate on art projects, to invent new kind of forms, images and methods. And using kind of online practices. We've done some international projects there, one called Senseless that you could check out. Just follow some links through the theatre section for that. So polyopticon.org, I'll put the link in the description again, but I'm really keen to sort of feed what I'm doing on YouTube into Polyopticon and vice versa, feed the community that I've got there across into YouTube if I can. I just wanted to, that was like my major project. I just wanted to talk about that. That's my major project as for the last sort of year and a bit. And the other major project that I'm doing as an artist is my drawing program, where I've written a program, a computer program that uses video input to create drawings, and to create an installation in which the audience interacts with the drawing program. They have drawings made of themselves in real time. The effect is almost an animation is of the scene, and it works by taking the visual input, working out groups of pixels of similar value, and then drawing a vector line around those groups of pixels and just rendering that vector line as a projection. The other thing I wanted to talk about is I've got an exhibition coming up in Melbourne in the start of March called We Are the Web, and the content that I'm making here will be featured in that, and of course any content, comments and what have you from YouTube will be pumped into that show as well. So I'm keen to sort of use this as a way in which I can get an interaction between the art community and the online community, the art community in Melbourne, and hopefully internationally as well eventually. Now the reason why I'm doing all of this is I sort of haven't really explained where I'm coming from, and I'll probably try and continue to explain this with all of my blogs. I'm interested in social production, which is sort of a concept that a guy called Benkler kind of is popularizing in his book. Can't remember the title, I'll put it in the description. Social production, where we talk about user-generated content using social structures and social networks to produce content, to produce essentially works or artworks. And these things which we see in YouTube and things like YouTube, we see feedback systems which then sort of relay from the content back onto the audience, and the audience can then relay it back to the content generator. And of course sometimes the roles of the content generator and the audience are very much blurred, where really everyone's the audience and everyone is a content generator. So these feedback systems displace the figure of, in artistic terms, displace the figure of the artist from a central authoritative authorship sort of role to a more fuzzy, less defined, less central sort of role. So the creative process is distributed across the audience, and the audience's role is distributed across the artistic production. And so that also relates quite heavily to community art, dialogical art, works of art that I'm trying to think of the word for it. There's that word. Anyway, I'll try and remember that word. Interaction and participation, of course, is a massive part of that, and sort of relates in some ways to a more democratic relationship, which of course a lot of people have challenged the validity of that democratic relationship, because of course, you know, there's still the Google corporate sort of structure that supports the whole thing. So and so that's kind of where I'm coming from with YouTube. I think that here we have an artifact of our culture that is deeply involved in these ideas. The ideas of community, dialogue, discourse, interaction, participation, social production, user-generated content, feedback systems, many of which we can see in 20th century art. These sorts of ideas were explored in 20th century art, from the Futurists, Marionetti's variety theatre, the Dada movement, with things like postal art. We can see it in all kinds of socialist sort of movements, like the Situationists and so forth. We can see it in more recent work with community-based practices and project-based collaboration. Collaboration, of course, is another central idea that I'm interested in. And so, looking around at YouTube, I've seen a bunch of things, a whole bunch of groups, which are really exciting. In the art section, it's mostly anime, which is okay. I love anime, don't get me wrong. I lived in Japan for a year in Tokyo, but I got a bit sick of the anime. But in between the anime, there is quite a lot of good art groups there, video art groups, etc. One that has contacted me already is visual poetry, and I was quite impressed with the work in visual poetry. However, I am interested particularly in this sort of connection, this interaction between the audience and the artwork, or the audience and the artist. And so I'd like to push that in visual poetry. I'd like to push that in a range of these groups, and the notion of video art on YouTube, I think, has a great opportunity to explore this idea, and to research and develop that idea as well, and sort of take it further. And so that's basically what I came to talk about. I'm still trying to remember that word though. Oh God, I can't remember it. Anyway, I'll find out what that word is, and I'll also put it in the descriptions. But between now and then, I encourage you to go and check out polyopticon.org. I encourage you to check out ubuweb.com, which I posted in the in the first blog that I put up. And I encourage you to think and respond to what I'm saying about user-generated content as an artistic method, and how valuable that is, and how we can use that notion in art. Okay, thanks. Bye. Ciao.